Welcome to the 10-Minute Treasure. My name is Jeff Pospisil, and I'm glad you can join me for this. This is part of the discussion on what it looks like for a good split within the United Methodist denomination. And we're starting to see that already as some clergy and some churches have joined the Global Methodist denomination. And a while back, I put forth 4 principles to help guide us. And this third one is faithfulness in our commitments to each other. And so I'll be looking at that and trying to look at it from the angle of a pastor. And I'm not a pastor, so I'm going to qualify that, but at least what I see is from a pastor's point of view as well as from a church's point of view. I'm going to start off by looking at the Book of Discipline. And by the way, I have this love-hate relationship with the Book of Discipline. I like that it has a lot of good history and it has a lot of good principles and it has a lot of great rules, but it also just has a lot. I mean, it becomes almost impossible to keep. It might even be impossible. It's surely impractical to keep the whole thing. And just to illustrate this, I remember when I was a brand new conference treasurer and I was being trained by the general church. The trainer would every now and then drop a line like saying, oh, this section of the Book of Discipline, you don't really have to follow that, or you don't have to follow it that closely. There's room, even though it says shall, there's wiggle room there. And eventually, after I heard this 3 or 4 times, I raised my hand and said, is there a list of sections of the Book of Discipline that I don't have to follow? Because that might save our time, and why don't we just remove them if we don't have to follow them? Anyway, I wasn't that popular at the meeting, but that kind of illustrates that even the general church didn't find it practical to fully follow the Book of Discipline. And so even though this section here, it's on the qualifications for the ordained ministers, and it does say that you accept its doctrinal standards and disciplines and authority, but I think there must be a little bit of wiggle room there because even the general church doesn't think it's practical to keep it all. But the line I want to focus on is be prepared to live in the covenant of its ordained ministers. And the question I had was, what is that covenant? And this is really good. This part is later down in the Book of Discipline. It says, an order is a covenant community within the church to mutually support, care for, and hold accountable its members for the sake of the life and mission of the church. Isn't that good? Mutually support, care for, and hold accountable its members for the sake of the life and mission of the church. And that's what I want to drill into this highlighted section, that support, care for, and hold accountable. What does it mean for faithfulness as a pastor? And this is Jeff talking as a lay person, and so you can take this with a grain of salt or a cup of salt, but I do try to hold myself to a high standard. But again, it's not the same thing. I realize that. But here are some areas that I try to focus on myself, and I think our clergy should too as a covenant community. And first of all is how we relate to each other on social media. That's a very public place, and I think sometimes, it says support, care for, and hold accountable. A lot of times we choose to support and care for those that we agree with, and then we hold accountable those that we don't agree with. And really, if you're holding somebody accountable, there should also be a measure of support and care that they feel as well. Otherwise, you're just pushing them away if you're always trying to hold them accountable. And this is my own preference, is that probably if we're going to try to hold somebody accountable, it should probably be done in private first. And if it seems wise then to go public, then I would go public, but probably that should start privately first. The next one is the Book of Discipline, and I've already confessed my struggles with this, that I think it's impossible and surely impractical to keep it all fully. And this one, I try to measure, is following the provision of the Book of Discipline harming or helping the mission, and I realize this is such loose. So this is probably not a good one, but so an example of this would be the Book of Discipline says that a pastor needs to turn in their statistics by January 31st. I always put the due date at February 28th. Why? because it's shifting the burden onto me. It makes it a little easier for the pastors. The pastors can focus on other things, and it gives them a little bit of extra time to focus on starting off the year well. So is it contrary to the discipline? Yes. Is it hurting the mission? I think it's actually helping the mission. So anyway, the other one is remembering that we're on the same team. All of us are currently on the same team. If we're United Methodist, we're all on the same team. Even if somebody's acting poorly, they're still part of the team. So keeping that in mind. This happens to just be our clergy at one of our annual conferences on the same softball team. So the other one I like, and I think every pastor and every United Methodist for that matter should be in a group that supports, cares for, and holds you accountable. And I like the band meeting. I've been in a band meeting now for several years, and I don't know of a better place to receive care, support, and accountability than the band meeting. But some kind of a group that you regularly meet with your peers to experience this. So I think that's very helpful. And back to the discipline. Now we're going to look at it from a church's standpoint. And the discipline I'm going to use is to be loyal to Christ through the United Methodist Church and do all in their power to strengthen its ministries. So, and to expand on that a little bit, the local church is to minister to persons in the community where their church is located, to provide appropriate training and nurture to all, to cooperate in ministry with other local churches, and to defend God's creation and live as an ecologically responsible community, and to participate in the worldwide mission of the church as minimal expectations of an authentic church. So the ones that I wanted to lift up specifically, all of those were important. But these two that I highlighted, cooperate in ministry with other local churches and participate in the worldwide mission of the church, those are the more cooperative ones where we are being faithful to each other. What does faithfulness as a church look like? As I was thinking of this, 3 areas came to my mind. First of all, being faithful in what God has called your specific church to do. And so your own mission as a church, your own purpose as a church. This happens to be Sunnycrest. Love God, love neighbor. Do that as well as you can, because you're going to give the whole body a better reputation in your area, and you're going to influence other ones. But that should be high on your list if you are going to be faithful. Be faithful to the mission your church has been called to in the location you have been planted. The next one I want to lift up is I do believe faithfulness in apportionments. And this is not just for those that are leaning towards going to the Global Methodist denomination. If you are planning on staying with the United Methodist denomination, you should also be trying to be faithful in your apportionments. And what does that mean? It means making it a priority. Sometimes that might be having a plan to work up to full apportionments. Sometimes that might be just giving apportionments even when you don't feel like it. But that is part of what I think faithfulness as a church looks like. And then the next one I want to lift up, this is a picture of some recent retirees. And I do think we do need to be mindful about how we are faithful to our retirees. And so that means caring for their pension, caring for their health, those kind of things are important, and just keeping in mind that we are faithful to them as they have been faithful to us. I hope that this has been helpful. One of the things I'll do is I'll put a link to the Book of Discipline just in case you're curious. I'll also put a link to the apportionments payment page too, because I mentioned that. Another thing that I will do the next time I show one of these split videos is I'll talk a little bit more about the denomination's plan for allowing churches to separate. And so we'll look at a separation that encourages cooperation. And that'll be very interesting because it'll air right around the time annual conference is happening. All right, till next time, God bless.